Good evening. Good evening, Carol. Lovely. Thank you. Prompt on the spot. Yeah, good one. Just bear with me for a moment as other people get to their devices and log on. And then I will that'll save me from repeating this or that or the other. Carol, can you type in and just tell me you're down in South Africa, right? Can you make a comment? As I said, always wait a minute or two. My mum, I believe, will be coming online this evening, watching, which is always nice. Three people are online. Great, welcome. So, Bill, good one, bruh. Nice to see you. You've had some awesome performances recently. Heads up on that one. That's making the best out of a difficult situation. Brilliant. Well done. Well, there we are. We've got 4 people, so 4 people, and I'm sure others will be joining us. But I would... Fiona, Fee, my wonderful old girlfriend from such a long time ago. Lovely. So nice that you're there. Great that you can make it. Yeah, it's high summer. Eckernförde is absolutely boiling outside. So it's right. It's like the Côte d'Azur of Germany up here at the moment. It is just too amazing for words, and really and truly. Yeah. Where to begin? I'd like to begin with news. Now, 3 weeks ago, I posted my poetry evening had to be cancelled because of illness. I bounced back. Here I am again. And then it was summer holidays, and I was with my younger son Ben. We had a little camping holiday, and now it's back to reality. Here we are in Eckernförde, back at home. COVID is still rolling out for lots of you around all over the world, but here in Germany, it's pretty much back to reality. Funnily enough, I was invited to a wedding last night. You won't believe this. The wedding ceremony took place again, then afterwards was the wedding party. But at the wedding party, no one was allowed to dance together other than the marriage couple themselves. I mean, that is just totally nuts. 50, 60 people, dinner and all the rest of it. But the only people allowed to dance, that was the bridal couple themselves. Insane. So, I mean, yeah, COVID is still visible here in Germany, but it's not really that restrictive any longer. Further good news, very good news, wonderful news. For me, it's taken so much work and such a long time. This was, my mother's there. Hello, Mum. Greetings to you. Welcome. Lovely you made it. I'm just saying, this was the first book, New Millennium Poetry, which was published, came out in December of last year. And as you see this, that is what we call a QR code, right? This QR code you can scan with your smart device, and that links you to the website, and you get a live audio of me reciting the poetry. And I can only tell everyone, try it out. It's like magic. It really, everyone who's done this, who's got the book, scanned the code and listened to it, has been absolutely gobsmacked. It really is, even for me, you know, I had no idea that the result would be so good. So you can read the poetry, and at the same time you can listen to me actually reciting it, which is great. It's unusual. As far as I know, no one else has done this anywhere ever. The good news is the second book is also available on Amazon. The second book, which is New Millennium Poetry, Volume 2. Volume 1 just covers a certain number of categories, and with Volume 2 I have completed a whole spectrum of different categories under which the poetry has been ordered. Children's poetry, inspirational poetry, nature poetry, travel poetry, you know, on and on and on. So anyway, the second book is there. The second book doesn't have the QR codes though, but I'd love you to get the first book, listen to it, try it out. It's a balsam, it's an ointment to the soul before you go to sleep. You know, it's poetry which takes you into the subconscious in all the imagery. Great. So that's the news. Now I'd really like to dive in and dig into this evening's presentation. Jan, greetings, Jan. That is so nice to have you here as well. Well done. Greetings. I hope you enjoy the evening. This evening, as I've posted on the beginning of the poetry, what I'd like to do, I'm going to be reading poetry that I've been writing in the last 2 to 3 weeks, actually since I haven't been online. And all of the poetry has a common thread. In all of this poetry, if you listen to the content always leads the listener back to that space of quietude. It takes the listener or the reader back to that space of stillness, of deep inner peace. That is a common thread which flows through all of the different poetry. Now I'm going to read 2 or 3 poems, and then I'm going to explain where these ideas come from out of the spectrum of modern neuroscience. Yeah? So, step number 1, bear with me. Use what I've described beforehand as divergent focus. Divergent focus being nothing other than, in a way, you take your attention off your smartphone or the television, you turn the radio off, and you basically just lay back, you can cross your arms, and listen into the content. Poetry is not easy. It's because it's so compromised, you know. It's meant to be like that. And that's its strength and its power, and at the same time, that's its Achilles heel, because it's not just simple prose that we're reading, you know. There's deep content which is and meaningful content which is there, and which is there for you to discover and for you to resonate with. So the poem I'm going to start this evening is called Today. And it's almost like a prayer, to be honest. It's in a way just this thankfulness. Anyway, it's called Today. And here we go. Make what you do today an expression of your beauty. Take this opportunity to love. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Kiss each cloud, embrace the fields, sing to the birds each morning. What you are is how you love. So kneel and thank life 1,000 times for this day. Kneel and thank life 1,000 times for this day. It's, in a way, it's a poem about gratitude, to be grateful. And to be grateful also triggers positive ideas and thoughts in your own mind. The second poem, I did a quote, I don't know, a year or two ago, and it says, the quote is the following: "We are not only stardust, for shining within each of us is also an entire universe of starlight." So, I mean, this is, okay, we all know it. The substance of what we are is basically the elements, and all the elements come from degraded star matter, which has occurred deep in the universe and reassembled in the form of a living being. That's who we are. So we are, in a way, in our source, we are of stardust. But not only that, the substance of who we are is illuminated. It's illuminated by the light of the universe. And that's what this poem is actually about. It's succinct, it's very short, and here we go. It's not alone the dust from stars which constitutes my body. It's also the entire radiance of the cosmos which illuminates my consciousness. So it is that we emergent recognize our origins and touch with inspiration the interconnectedness of the moment. It's also the entire radiance of the cosmos which illuminates our consciousness. So it is that we emergent recognize our origin and touch with inspiration the interconnectedness of the moment. I will be coming back to this idea a little bit later. Now I'm going to read, as I said, another 1 or 2 poems, and then I'm going to be talking about where these ideas are coming from in the context of classical Newtonian physics, quantum mechanics, and neuroscience. The next poem is called Sublime. And we all know what sublime means, yeah? So I won't explain. Blue, all blue and green the growth. Its soul, all soul the singing world. I've heard across the ocean's thunder, above the forest whisper, sweet voices barely audible, alone to the breeze, fine tunes which blow awareness, capture my attention, initiate the intent to stretch forward, arms open to embrace and inhale this moment of inspiration, this instant of life. We are this which we perceive. Our colors change too with each awakening. Flower we bring wonder to the world. Bird song bringing joy to this day, enhancing the way I perceive my wealth, an entity among the myriads which life has brought forth today, reminding myself it's but a dash through time, till again we sigh, we become sublime. An entity among the myriads which life has brought forth today, reminding myself, life, it's but a dash through time, till again we sigh, and we become sublime. So there in the poem, it's this connectedness with the moment, perceiving nature and realizing that what I perceive, I also am. I am what I perceive. And as you sensitize what it is that you see and the way you hear and the way you interact with life, that what is outside, beyond you, is also exactly a part of who you are. And the way you see it also reflects, or is a reflection of what and who you are inside your own awareness and your own consciousness. This next poem, and it's the last one before I'll do a little bit more of explanation, is called Climb. And here I use the idea or the metaphor of self-discovery, self-discovery, self-awareness, and I use the metaphor of the mountain, where you go in and you are confronted with who you are. You meet yourself. And in that process, in that adventure, you come across something completely profound, which has always been there, but you've never really been aware of. Yeah? So, Climb. When your soul searches for answers, go in deep and scale the massivity, the cliffs, cracks and crevices of your magnificence. Accept it all completely. As your destiny is to quench this thirst. Where? The traveler asked. At the fountainhead of yourself, the echoes sighed. Insight is your calling and recognition. God is with you and always has been. It's one's own greatness we all humbly need to scale, which you are and always have been. Yeah, it's one's own greatness that we all humbly need to scale. Yeah, again, a poem that in its content indicates towards the invisible within us human beings, within mankind. Now, what I'd like to do, I'd like to spend just 2-3 minutes talking about the impulses which inspire this type of writing, which give me that particular kick in the butt every now and again to go into my thoughts and my thinking and find ways of describing fundamental processes in the human psyche which are congruent to everyone, which we all confront sooner or later. But by the very nature of our own humanity, it lies within us that the existential questions about life are something that we all will confront. And the further we distance ourselves from those existential questions, I think the lonelier we become as individuals. And the more that we change the direction and we step towards seeking answers, the more interesting life becomes. Because what you get, who you get, and what you get to meet and understand is no one other than yours truly, yourself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm talking about this process of stepping forward and looking for answers to existential questions about who we are and where we come from. Now, when we look back in our own history, it was René Descartes, who died 1650. He's known as the father of materialism. He had an incredibly powerful and molding force on the way our thinking as modern men and women in 2020 has been created. René Descartes died 1650, the father of materialism. And then another great scientist and mathematician was Isaac Newton. These two together molded what we now know as Newtonian science. And Newtonian science can very simply be described as the science of understanding things, material matter, the hard stuff that moves through space and has weight. And these two men created the background from which all the rest of that materialistic science has evolved. But something interesting happened along the way. And that was in the course of our century, 20th century, the search which went into the particle, the machines became stronger, the microscopes became more exact, the telescopes became bigger. So the view out into the cosmos, as was the view down into the microcosm, got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Nature's mechanisms, Newtonian science. But at some point, they reached a threshold. And the threshold was when we move from particles to atoms, and we move into something which is known as quantum physics. So we have Newtonian physics, which describes the matter, the physical substance of man, the pain of our physical body, and the sadness of our emotional life. This all belongs to Newtonian physics. Quantum physics, on the other hand, is a completely different story, because scientists have discovered there we're talking about energy, we're talking about fields, we're talking about your participation in a quantum field is actually affects the field itself. So what's meant by that is that you or we as human beings interact with the quantum world, the quantum field, quantum energy. Yeah? So, till this particular moment, it's been more a very brief description of what's Newtonian physics and quantum physics. Within that progress, within the last 25 years, there's been a tremendous development in neuroscience. And neuroscience, in a way, is starting to synthesize understanding of quantum mechanics and how that affects the human mind and how that affects us as individuals and the way that we perceive our own consciousness. Yeah? So, taking a step back for a moment, when we look at the great religions of the world, let's, for example, we take Buddhism. We see the effigies of Buddha, and when we look at Buddhism itself, what does this figure represent? And the figure represents something which exists within the quantum field. It is the energetic expression of the human being, expressed in his physical form. So Buddha will have a physical form, but what's actually being represented is not the physical man, but his energetic field. Yeah? In Christianity, what happened, when we look at images of Christianity, we see Christ on the cross, and we see the body, in a way, in death, and as it falls to destruction. And the spirit is only talked about. It's completely invisible. The energetic field of Christ is something which is in the rituals which the church carry forward and have carried forward in time. Yeah? Now, just keeping that in mind, everyone, we all recognize that in some form or another we are spiritual beings. A completely materialistic view on you and I, or mankind as such, has been surpassed. Yeah, we know that we have this energy within us, that we've come from somewhere and that we're going somewhere. Yeah, life. Yeah, Gareth. This life force that you're talking about, right? I would like to make a connection now to neuroscience. Neuroscience has made two major developments and discoveries. The one is called neuroplasticity. Now, to briefly describe what neuroplasticity is about, all that means is that the brain as an organ is something which can physically transform through the activity of your own willpower and your conscience. It's not the other way around. You are not subject, your character or your personality is not subject to the physical brain as such. It's the other way around. It's your character and your consciousness which can actually physically affect and change the plasticity of the brain. That's why it's called neuroplasticity. The brain can be revitalized. The brain can be updated. It can be rebooted. Yeah? Your memory function can be improved, all through conscious exercise. Yeah? Again, the organ itself is subject to the greater, more powerful transformative force of your own conscious thinking. Yeah? That's a very profound new discovery. something completely different to what René Descartes proposed in 1650. Yeah? There, everything was just material and subject to decay. Nothing could change. Yeah? Rewired. We can rewire. Yeah. We can rewire our own brains. The second great discovery within neuroscience is it's called brainwave entrainment. Now, the brief description of entrainment is the following. Neuroscience has discovered that the brain itself, as we know, has different levels of awareness, right? We have delta, which we're listening, talking. This is a particular frequency. We have that lowers to alpha when we're watching television or we're driving on a long distance drive in a car. And then you get these very fine frequencies called theta just before you go into sleep with this rapid eye movement. And then we've got deep delta, which is where the brain waves are very slow and very fluid. Yeah, that's the slowest that you get. And then we go into deep sleep. And in deep sleep, we get brain reactivation and brain cleaning. Now, these brain patterns are extremely sensitive to entrainment. So what is entrainment? Entrainment, I'll tell you about an experiment they did at Stanford University. Using a CT scan on the brain, meaning they had a visual image of what the brain looks like, they put headphones on somebody and they fed them two slightly different frequencies. Slightly different frequencies. And they were watching the brain on the CT scanner to see what happened. Now, from an evolutionary point of view, hearing is always been universal. Sound comes around us. So for the brain to receive independently for the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere two different frequencies was a unique experience. And what they saw blew their minds. Because the brain takes the two different frequencies and creates what we call a third harmonic. A sound which is only present in the mind of the person who has actually had the earphones on their head and was participating in the experiment. And they could visually see this happening. The brain creates a third sound which doesn't exist anywhere in reality. Right. The consequence is the most important thing, because both you and I've been doing biaudial brainwave entrainment. What you do, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain, what they do, they start to harmonize. That means they create new neural pathways between the left and the right brain hemisphere. And it is a new form of what people today call mindfulness, or old school, you might call meditation. I call it old school because meditation, there's still so many old connotations going back to Buddha sitting in lotus and that old school of meditation. But with modern neuroscience, it's neuroplasticity combined with biaudial brainwave entrainment. Gareth, thank you for your question. How does that plasticity change our capacity? Exactly what it does. It changes it fundamentally, but you perceive the change individually. The first thing that we perceive as individuals when you start doing these meditations or mindfulness meditations is that worry disappears completely out of your life. And when we look neurologically as what is worry, worry is actually nothing other than, it's a bad habit. Worry is a bad habit. It's you connecting to something which has happened in the past and repeatedly thinking about it. So it's like smoking. Worry is nothing but a bad habit. And brainwave entrainment releases those neural connections and enables you just to feel simply a lot more in contact with yourself and freer as an individual. Yeah? So, by doing these exercises over the last years, binaural brainwave entrainment and using the idea of neuroplasticity, the poetry that I've been writing indicates and takes us towards these existential moments of who we are and how we experience ourselves in a completely modern context, in a totally new way. Yeah? Not a traditional way, not a religious way, but in a scientific way, which is, I find, profound. You know, from my basic training, I'm an engineer and I'm a psychotherapist. So, you know, I have a very analytical way of thinking. And at the same time, I have this tremendous interest in human psychology and understanding the way we behave and work as human beings. So maybe that's enough for tonight. That was to give you an idea as to where my poetry comes from and what it's indicating, what it indicates. Yeah? Sure, I'm going to just have a quick sip here. The logic. What happens when you use binaural brainwave entrainment? I'll just maybe say 2 or 3 sentences to in a way to give you a clearer picture. What happens is you shut down your prefrontal cortex. That is very difficult. Nature never gave the human being the possibility to throw a switch and turn off your thinking mind. That prefrontal cortex carries your thinking consciousness and is running 24/7. Mindfulness and binaural brainwave entrainment takes us down into the subconscious mind. And in the subconscious mind, that's where 95% of who you are and who I am actually is existent. But it's somewhere that so few of us actually go to on a conscious level. And so by using the brainwave entrainment and consciously going into the subconscious mind on a regular basis, over and over again, you leave the connection to your own self of identification, your own self-awareness, your own self-ego. You step back from that and you step into a common space the common space where all of us are connected. We step into what's also known as the quantum field, an energetic field, because every single mind has a subconscious. And when we consciously go into the subconscious, we connect with ourselves. And as that practice progresses, it starts to resonate, and there's a resonation with a greater cosmic consciousness. And out of that, there come flashes of awareness and flashes of insights and flashes of understanding as to the existential questions about where is it that we come from and where is it that we're going to. And those are ideas on impulses that I am probing and trying to bring to expression in my work. To get into the subconscious mind, yeah, it's an exercise. It's like a meditation. You need to use headphones, and if anyone's interested, do contact me after the poetry reading, and I can give you direct links as to where you can actually try this out yourself. You know, it doesn't cost anything. You just need a good pair of earphones, and you need a regular practice, and then you're good to go. It'll just start happening. Whoa. Okay. I'm going to read another poem called Again and Again. Oh, goodness me, the time flies. Right. Again and Again. And this is, I suppose, yeah, just another great little poem. Again and again. In my thoughts, I reach out, knowing not when I might touch your hair. Stare into your invisible blue, aquamarine gaze. This imagined invitation is trust and true. I'm invited to share in depth your blue. It's in my vision of a future. You playing satay quietly on my heart. I let go, smiling, fly another 1,000 miles to meet your eyes, blinded by the intensity of a wish to localize my feelings into emotions today, spinning while you page through a book of poetry. Remarkably eloquent insights captured, remarks which fascinate my intellect, include the jive of emotional connectivity. As you flow unintentionally rich into my imagination, again and again and again. So as you flow unintentionally rich, again and again and again into my imagination. A little poem about thinking about someone that you love. This poem, called A Midnight Swim, I wrote recently while I was in Croatia with my son Ben, and we were on a holiday. And that's exactly what we did. A midnight swim. Last night, I tiptoed through a starlit sky, warm the air, the splash of ripple, a seagull cry, a twinkle, a smile, a squeak of joy. Both I, the moon and Saturn too, we all alive enjoy the expanse of a Milky Way on a clear dark night, of shooting stars from left to right, of this all-encompassing romance. I splashed my feet in the warm, wet sea, the dark, the water of feeling free. So swimming out to touch the light, left by the moon on this starry night, my soul rejoicing, I sang a song of life, of free, of me, of beginning, of being part, of infinity. Feeling love for this moment strong, reflections, images of a cosmic night, revelations in the dark, a universe we see, we touch, so much to comprehend, the beginning and the very end. Yeah, a beautiful moment on a dark night under a starry sky. It's 1:45. Carol Martin. Lovely, Carol. I'm so happy you've made it. It's just about at the end of my poetry reading, but I would still got a couple of poems. As you can see, I've just I went to my website and I just went down the list of the most recent poems that I've written, and I'm reading them off. Shall I continue? I'm happy. I've got another 3 or 4 which I could read here. As I said, all of these poems indicating moving towards the idea of okay, Gareth, that's a cool one. That's great, yeah. Actually explaining what the poem's about, yeah. And you guys have got a little bit of time. I always feel I'm taking up people's time, and I don't want to take so much of your valuable time. This next poem is it's called Resonation. To be honest, I don't think the word actually exists. I invented it. Resonation. Yeah. Michael, birthday boy. Am I correct? Congratulations. All the best. Yeah, I think you had your birthday yesterday, right? This poem is called Resonation. And again, it's in the context of the question, who is it that I look at when I gaze into the mirror in the morning and I'm still dizzy from sleep? You know, I think we've all had that question. You look at yourself and you think, who the hell is this guy? You know, you hardly recognize yourself. And interestingly enough, you know, your brain is actually not back in beta. You're still in alpha. You know, in this transition, your brain is actually rebooting from that point of neuroscience. And so when we're in that state of half awareness, it's sensitive, you know, be sensitive when you ask those questions to the resonance, to the answers that you get. Because the answers that you're getting are then not coming from your prefrontal cortex, but they're coming out of your deep mind, out of the cerebrum. Yeah? And they are always fascinating because they're things you haven't thought about, but they're things that we know. We know things. We know things, right? Resonation and the difference to resonance. Great. Rezoning. Cool. Okay, well, keep that in mind. I'm going to read the poem. There's a quiet voice which when I listen, I hear not sound. I hear not voices or music. To be heard is only the deep beyond whispering. For then I have become that for which we listened. I'm going to repeat that because that's actually a difficult, just try and grasp that idea, that thought, yeah? There's a quiet voice which when I listen, I hear not sound, I hear not voices or music. To be heard is only the deep beyond, whispering. Okay, so there you are. That is the moment of being in the subconscious mind, being in alpha or theta in that brainwave state, induced through brainwave entrainment by using headphones. Okay, so listen clearly. For then I have become that for which we listened. So what I mean there is that there is, even though you're going into a state of mindfulness, your conscious mind or your intention is still free. You're still free, but you are directing, you're in a way, you're orchestrating the movement of how it is that your mind is moving in the brain itself. Isn't that mind-blowing? We are in the ringing, flowing with its resonation, from whence we came, to which we return. It's now. This truly matters, for we feel it as the love of a love from the loved. Now, maybe that last line is not that important, but what is really interesting here is actually the description. We're in the ringing. Okay, that's in a way in the field, in one of these quantum fields I was talking about. We're in the ringing, flowing with its resonation, from whence we came, to which we return. Yeah. So, as spiritual beings, we've incarnated from a quantum field and an energetic field into an earthly body, and in that earthly body, the mind itself, you can use the physical organ of the brain to reactivate it, to move it and mold it with this neuroplasticity, and enable the brain to refocus those energies and connect again with something, a field of energy that we were originally connected with and came from. For me, that is mind-blowing stuff. That is powerful stuff, because it's it's just working with our own humanity. It's not drugs, it's not anything. It's just having that mental focus to make that step, and the intention to step forward and do it, And out of all of that, I can say all of this creativity, my writing, which is now becoming, all of that creativity has come from these impulses, It's made me very creative as such, as a person. I'm just reading here, Gareth, flows of fields, yeah. Not that which we heard. From whence we came. I've got, for any of you interested, all of the poems from this evening, I've actually made a file. I could send you the file as an email. So you can actually read these poems. I mean, you can read them in the book, but I could also just send you exactly these poems that I've recited, yeah? Aura, like an aura, yeah. An aura is nothing other than an energetic field, yeah. And then you focus the aura, exactly. You focus the aura. You concentrate and activate the different energy chakra. Well, Sanskrit, they call them chakras, but you energize them until you get into the brain. Anyway, one more, and then we call it a night, okay? As I mentioned, maybe this is a good one to end with. At the beginning of the evening, I mentioned that so many of the poems refer to quietude, solitude, being alone, to being mindful, doing meditation, coming into contact with your own subconscious mind. The subconscious mind being 95% of the organ in your brain. You're only using 5%. Yeah? That prefrontal cortex. The rest of it is there, and it's full of energy, and it's completely unused. And when you step back into that through meditation and mindfulness, that starts to activate and starts to awake. And this poem is called Solitude, and it's about that process. Your solitude is not your isolation. It's space, a place which is quiet and rich, vibrant, filled with who you are, resonating with what you think, vibrating with what you feel, harmonious with a vision of the true you. Here we are unique, original and beautiful. I was never taught to discover this place of solitude. We were never shown how intrinsically special quietude unfolds, unrolls, unravels. Places so filled with sincerity. Love's power lies in protecting your solitude. My solitude is love protecting me. My solitude is love protecting me. So I think that's a great idea to end with today, that the ultimate energy when one is in those spaces is an energy which is a protective one. It's solitude is not lonely, Gareth. This is what the poem actually points towards. The solitude is the opportunity of stepping into contact with the deeper and intrinsic you. It's only lonely if there's no contact with the deeper subconscious you, the unconscious you. And by doing these exercises in mindfulness, you go back into that quiet space and you let go of your needy ego and find in the quietude, in the solitude, grace, harmony, love, strength, creativity, profundity, energy. These are ideas that I'm very happy I've been able to share with you. Everyone who's been there, my sincere thanks. That's it for today. I hope I'll be back next week. If I'm not, it'll be because I'm working, and then I always work until 7 o'clock, and I'm only back home at 7:30. But solitude is peace, yeah. Solitude is deep peace. Deep peace of the running wave. That was from an Irish poem. Thank you for being here. Godspeed. Take care. You too, Bill. Keep going with your music. You're a legend. And let's all just stay in contact. Thank you. Good night.